Hey Aliopa! Today is January 5th, 2020, and I thought I would take you with me on a little walk through Visby's beautiful Botanic Garden. So here we go together. The Botanical Garden belongs to a private society called the Bathing Friends, which was incorporated in 1814, a group of young men who loved to bathe, to go swimming in the Baltic. In 1861, they started to create this magnificent small botanical garden for the benefit of everybody. So this is where I like to walk every day, and we're just going to walk around and I'll show you some of my favorite things. One of them is right in front of me, this magnificent beech tree, and I always greet her every day I come in. I always put my hand right here and say hello. So I think we'll start by going to our right and into the old physic or medicinal garden where they grow the healing herbs. You can see there's attractive wooden structures here which sort of mimic the Gothic arches of the ruined churches. Now in the summer this area is extraordinarily lush, and many of these herbs are extremely tall, so everything has been cut down for the winter and bedded over. To my right here, there is usually, in the summer, a large lemon tree, a pomegranate tree, and an olive tree. Those are in the greenhouse for the winter, of course. And here we have 4 little apple trees which produce profusely. And off on the wall, Esbelyard, there is a fig tree. And there's a very beautiful wisteria, which also grows against that wall. I think I've shown you a photograph of that before. There's asparagus here and all kinds of strawberries and lovely things. So here's a little view across, kind of panning, so you can see the full extent. Again, with the leaves down, you can see all the way to the Baltic, which is very close actually, but you can't typically see the sea very much when you're in here in the summer because there's so many trees. So we're going to walk down now, and I want to show you the lovely gazebo. The gazebo has a very interesting history because the mound that it has been built on was actually the dirt taken from the pond that they excavated in the 1860s so they could have their own clean water source here. So they built this really charming gazebo. So let's walk up there and take a look. The plantings around here are all kinds of interesting bulbs typically, and there'll be crocuses and tulips and iris and hellebores and all sorts of lovely things, many lilies. Let's walk into the gazebo itself. It's a charming structure, as you can see, and a very interesting resonant echo, as you can tell. There's a beautiful sycamore tree right outside. Absolutely stunning tree. And we look down, you'll see a new bed that the garden is making. There's Corten steel raised beds. They've already been planted, and there's a mason working, not today because it's Sunday, but there's a mason building that beautiful limestone pathway all around there. Okay, I think you can also see the beehives from here because the garden keeps its own bees. Very wise. So let's go down and walk into the rose terrace. You might be surprised, as I was the first time I came in the winter, to see that there's still roses in January at 58 degrees latitude. I want to stop just for a moment to show you the magnificent mulberry tree to my left, because this tree is more than 100 years old, and you really can see its structure beautifully at this time of year. Okay, now to the rose terrace. There is, I believe, about 80 different varieties of roses that they grow here, from really old-fashioned roses that have been known for 1,000 years to the most modern hybrids. Most of them, of course, are not blooming now, but you can see that there are a few splotches of color. You can see some yellow and pink roses even in January, which astounds me because you wouldn't expect that here at this latitude and not in January. So the rose terrace ends in a circular shape that's called an exedra, and it has a sundial in the middle, and this area will be extremely lush with beautiful bulbs in another couple of months. Lots and lots of fancy tulips and iris and other things will be bringing great color here. So now we're going to head over towards the little pond that I told you was dug out when they decided that they needed to create a source of water for the garden, and they took that soil and made the mound on which the gazebo sits. I want to point out to you how very, very green the grass is. We have not had a killing frost yet, so the grass is still bright green as if it was summer. There are typically many tables and benches and other places for people to sit and enjoy themselves, but in the winter they take them in to preserve them. So right now it's mainly people strolling about. So the little pond I'm taking you to rarely freezes over because it does have a pump in it, and it's a favorite place for ducks and other birds to come. It's fed by a little rill that comes down the length of the slope of the Botanical Garden. So here's that. And if I just turn the camera up to the ruins of St. Olaf's Church, then you'll see a very unusual feature of the Botanical Garden is it has its own ruin in it. That's the ruin of St. Olaf's there. There's only one small tower left from what was once a gigantic church, but it's very nice to have that incorporated. And I think the last thing I'd like to show you is the Charlocksport. That is the Lover's Gate, and this is a relatively modern opening in the wall that was created at the request of the bathing friends so that they could more readily get out to the water and take their swims. So we're going to end my little tour by taking you through the Lover's Gate, Charlocksport, so you can look at the Baltic with me. So here, of course, you're looking at the town wall, the medieval wall that encircles Visby. This is an area where it's at its lowest height. It's much taller in other areas. And now we're going to look through the Lover's Gate, the Charlocksport. And here we are at the Baltic. There's puffins, no, not puffins, eiders that are diving there. And there's oftentimes swans. I'm not seeing any right at the moment, but that's definitely an eider, I believe. Thank you so much for joining me on this little walk. I hope you've truly enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed taking you with me.